It is going to be capital L minus small l, right? Now the weight of the hanging part of the chain will be equal to. Namaste dear students, welcome to our YouTube channel Master Physics Academy. By learning physics here, you will master physics. Happy learning, ಒಳ್ಳೆದಾಗಲಿ, ಶುಭವಾಗಲಿ. The number of electron in 1 coulomb of charges is. So we know that charge on any body is equal to integral multiple of the basic amount of charge, or what I can say is charge of an electron. We can include plus or minus sign here also, no problem. But the number of electrons that are added or that are taken out from a body to make it 1 coulomb of charge can be calculated using the formula Q divided by E. So what is Q value given here? 1 coulomb. And what is the charge of each electron? It is 1.6 into 10 to the power minus 19 coulomb. So there will be 10 power plus 19 in the numerator. I can write that this way, 10 into 10 to the power 18 for quick calculations. Then divided by 1.6. So I can just consider that as 60, and I can make one more zero here. So it is 100 by 16 for again to make the calculation easy and quick. So it is 4 into 4 times 16, 425 times 100. So 25 by 4 means it is going to be 6.25, and the power of 10 is 18 here. So the answer we are looking for is in option A. A particle A has charge plus q and particle B has charge plus 4q. Each of them having the same mass m. When allowed to fall from rest through the same electrical potential difference, the ratio of their speeds will become. So conceptually, the change in kinetic energy when the charges fall through some potential difference is given by final kinetic energy minus initial kinetic energy, and that is given by the charge times the accelerating potential difference. Now let us use this for the first body. First body A is having charge plus q and its mass is m, and it is starting from rest, and the electrical potential difference for the both the bodies is same, hence I am going to consider it to be V. So what will be the change in kinetic energy? That is going to be final kinetic energy. I am going to mention that as K1, and initial kinetic energy will be 0 as the body is starting from rest, and that is going to be equal to charge. Charge is q here and accelerating potential is V. And what do we know about kinetic energy in terms of the mass and speed is of m V1 squared. What is V1 here? Is this final speed of the first charge A. So let us apply the same thing for the second charge. So second charge, let us assume the final kinetic energy to be K2. Hence this K2 will be given by what is the charge here? Plus 4q. So 4q, and the accelerating potential is same here. So that will be equal to half mass is m here, and let us assume the final speed of the second body V2, then half m V2 squared will be its final kinetic energy. Now take the ratios. So qv divided by 4qv will be equal to 1 by 4. Half m and half m get cancelled. Then what is left here? V1 squared divided by V2 squared. Taking square root, finally we found that V1 by V2 is equal to 1 by 2. So the correct option is option B. A stone weighs 100 Newton on the surface of the earth. The ratio of its weight at a height of half the radius of the earth to a depth of half the radius of the earth will be approximately. In the question, they are asking the ratio of weight of the body at certain height to the weight of the body at certain depth. The h value, that is height value, is given as half the radius of the earth, and the d value is also given as half the radius of the earth. And what is the value of WH? We know that that is equal to m into GH, where m is the mass of the body and GH is the acceleration due to gravity at the height h. And what is the WD? That is going to be mass of the body multiplied with GD, and GD is the value of acceleration due to gravity at given point. Mass is not going to vary from place to place, hence we can cancel out that. So we need to calculate GH by GD. First of all, let us consider the formula for GH, which is given by GH is equal to acceleration due to gravity on the surface of the earth into r square divided by r plus h whole square. Now let us substitute the h value, which is r by 2. So it is going to be g into r square divided by r plus h, that is r plus r by 2, which is going to be 3r by 2. Squaring that, we will be getting 9r squared by 4, and that 4 goes to the numerator. R squared and r squared getting cancelled. So we got the answer for GH as 4g divided by 9. Now what is the formula for GD? That is going to be acceleration due to gravity on the surface of the earth multiplied with 1 minus d divided by r. Substitute the value of d, that is r by 2, we will be getting g into 1 minus 1 by 2. 1 minus 1 by 2 is 1 by 2. Hence finally the acceleration due to gravity at that depth will be equal to half the acceleration due to gravity on the surface of the earth. Now we need to calculate the ratio, that is GH by GD. Substituting, we will be getting 4g divided by 9 into 2 divided by g. So g and g getting cancelled out. So what do we have finally is 8 by 9. So what is the value of 8 by 9? It is going to be approximately equal to 0.9 as given in option D. The gravitational field strength at the surface of a certain planet is G. Which of the following is the gravitational field strength at the surface of a planet with twice the radius and twice the mass? So basically the definition of gravitational field at the surface of any planet is given by the force experienced by some mass placed on the planet's surface divided by the mass. That means I am going to consider the diagram here. So let us consider a planet with mass capital M, say, and let its radius be capital R. If I place a small body of mass M on the surface of the planet, the force it is going to experience is given by Gmm divided by R squared. We all know this expression, right? So if I divide that force by the mass of the body placed on the surface of the planet, what do we get is the gravitational field strength, that is given by symbol G. So the formula for G will be equal to Gm divided by R squared. Now we do have another planet with mass given as 2 times the mass of the first planet, and radius will be equal to twice the radius of the first planet. Now its gravitational field strength at the surface of the planet given will be given by formula G 2 times m divided by 2 times r whole square. Solving this, we will be getting the final answer as G divided by 2. Hence the option A is the correct choice. Vector A has a magnitude of 10 units and makes an angle 30 degree with the positive x-axis. Vector B has magnitude of 20 units and makes an angle of 30 degree with the negative x-axis. What is the magnitude of the resultant between these two vectors? So let us consider this as the x-axis. So we do have a vector called A with unit 10 units, and it is going to make angle 30 degree to the positive x-axis. Let us consider this as the origin. Now we do have another vector with double the magnitude, that is 20 units, called as vector B, which is going to make angle 30 degree to the negative x-axis. Now what is the angle between these two vectors? That is 180 minus 60, which is going to be 120 degree. So we do have a formula for the magnitude of resultant of two vectors given by root of a square plus b square plus 2ab cos theta. Now let us substitute the values here. So a square means 10 square, which is going to be 100. B square means it is 20 squared. 20 squared means 400. plus 2 into 10 into 20 into cos 120. So what is cos 120? Let us evaluate it. Cos 120 can be written as cos 90 plus 30, right? Okay, so cos 90 plus 30. So that means it is going to be minus sin 30 degree. What is sin 30 degree? 1 by 2. Hence it is going to be minus 1 by 2. So minus 1 by 2. And don't forget, we do have a root here. So 2 get cancelled. So what is the final answer here is 500 minus 10 into 20 is 200, right? Okay. So that is going to be root of 300. So root of 300 means I can write that as 10 root 3. So correct option is option D. A uniform chain of length L is lying partly on a table, the remaining part hanging down from the edge of the table. If the coefficient of friction between the chain and the table is 0.5, what is the minimum length of the chain that should lie on the table to prevent the chain from the slipping down to the ground? Let us consider the diagram for the given situation. We do have a table and a chain is resting on the table with some part of the chain hanging down like this. It is given that total length of the chain is capital L. Let us consider the part of the chain which is hanging is small l. Then what is the part of the chain that is resting on the table is, it is going to be capital L minus small l, right? Now the weight of the hanging part of the chain will be equal to m dash Lg, where m dash is the mass per unit length of the chain, which is given by total mass of the chain divided by its length. So m dash L is going to be mass of the hanging part of the chain, and g gives the acceleration due to gravity. Multiplying these two quantities, will be getting weight of the hanging part of the chain. If this is balanced by the frictional force acting on the chain which is resting on the table, then we say equilibrium is achieved. So what is the frictional force acting on the resting part of the chain? Mu times, that is coefficient of friction, mu times the mass that is resting on the table, that is going to be m dash into L minus L into G. Now m dash G will be getting cancelled. So we have the formula, the hanging part of the chain, length of the hanging part of the chain is equal to mu times the length of the resting part of the chain. We can use this as a shortcut formula in future. Okay. Now let us substitute. So L value, I don't know. Yes, it is just L. What is the value of mu? It is given as 0.5, which can be written as 1 by 2 and multiplied with L minus L. Simplifying, we will be getting 2L is equal to L minus L. So this gives the length of the hanging part of the chain as capital L by 3. But what they are asking is the part of the chain that is resting on the table. So that is going to be L minus L, right? So L minus L by 3 will be equal to 2L by 3. So the correct option is option C. A man weighing 70 kg riding a motorbike weighing 230 kg at 54 km per hour accelerates at 1 meter per second squared for 10 seconds. When suddenly a child rushes into the road, the rider manages to apply brakes, screeching to bring his vehicle to a halt in 3 seconds, just in time to save the child. What should have been the average retarding force on the vehicle? Here the combined mass of rider and the motorbike is 70 kg plus 230 kg, which is going to be 300 kg. The initial velocity of the vehicle is 54 km per hour. Converting that to meter per second, we do have 15 meter per second for the initial velocity. Now it is accelerating at the rate of 1 meter per second squared for 10 seconds. The final velocity what we are going to get in this case will be equal to v equals u plus at. Substituting, we do have 15 plus 1 into 10, which is going to be 25 meter per second. So now a child rushes into the road and driver applies brake so that the vehicle is stopped in 3 seconds. So we need to find the average acceleration first. So what the formula we will be having, v dash is equal to v is the initial velocity here, plus a dash t. A dash is the average acceleration or average retardation, I can say here, into time for which the body is under motion. Okay, see, the final velocity in this case will be equal to 0. Initial velocity is 25 meter per second plus acceleration, we need to find it out, and time is given as 3. So a dash will be equal to minus 25 by 3. So that is the retardation produced, average retardation produced. Then what is the average force acting on the vehicle means? The formula for this will be equal to m a dash. So let us substitute. M is 300 kg and retardation is minus 25 by 3. I can ignore the negative sign, which does says that the body's acceleration is opposite to the direction of velocity. So it is going to be 2500 Newton. None of the option given is matching with this answer. So I think they might have given grace mark for this question. The graph showing the variation of the magnetic field strength B with the distance r from a long current carrying conductor is. The magnetic field produced due to a long straight current carrying conductor is given by mu naught I divided by 2 pi r, where mu naught is the permeability of free space, I is the current flowing through the conductor, and r is the distance of the point from the current carrying conductor where we need to know the magnetic field. So what we come to know is B is inversely proportional to the distance. Therefore, the graph will be like 1 is given in option C. Inside a cyclotron, a charged particle is subjected to both an electric field and a magnetic field. It gains kinetic energy due to. We know that whenever the electron comes in between the D's of the cyclotron, it gets accelerated because of electric field. So its kinetic energy will increase because of electric field. The magnetic field will only do the job of turning it so that it moves in a circular path inside the D's. So only because of electric field we do have increase in kinetic energy. So the option we need to check is option A. A certain length of insulated wire can be bent to form either a single circular loop, case 1, or a double loop of smaller radius, case 2. When the same steady current is passed through the wire, the ratio of the magnetic field at the center in case 1 to that in case 2 is. Let us consider the length of the wire to be equal to L. In case 1, this wire has been bent into a form of a circle of number of turns 1. Let us consider the radius of the circular loop will be equal to R1 in this case. Therefore, we have circumference of this circular loop, that is 2 pi R1 is equal to L. Solving for radius, we have L divided by 2 pi as the radius of this circular coil. Let us call this as equation number 1. In case 2, the same wire is bent into a circular coil of number of turns equal to 2. This time radius will decrease, of course. And what do we have the relationship between the length and the circumference here? 2 times the circumference. Let us take the radius in this case to be equal to R2. 2 times the circumference of this coil will be equal to length of the wire. Solving for radius, we will get R2 is equal to L divided by 2 times 2 pi. Now the magnetic field at the center of a current carrying circular loop is given by the formula mu naught Ni divided by 2R, where mu naught is the permeability of free space and I is the current through the circular loop. Both are mentioned as same in the both the cases. So what is the relation here? Magnetic field will be directly proportional to number of turns and inversely proportional to radius of the circular coil. So taking the ratio B1 to B2, we will be getting N1 by R1 into R2 by N2. Now let us substitute. N1 is 1, R1 is L divided by 2 pi, and R2 is L divided by 2 times 2 pi whole divided by N2 is 2. Now solve this. L by 2 pi, L by 2 pi get cancelled, and what do we have is 1 by 4 as the answer. So hence the correct choice is option D.